She was forced to wed a stranger human, but his gentle touch broke every fear she held. The envelope sat on the kitchen table like a coiled snake, cream-colored and official, bearing her father's precise handwriting on the front. Thalia Morse stared at it, her fingers trembling as they hovered over the seal. "Just open it." "Love," her mother whispered from the doorway, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken apologies. Thalia tore the paper, scanning the formal words that spelled out her future. Arranged marriage, merger of assets, mutual benefit. The phrases blurred together until one name crystallized with painful clarity. Cale Varon. She didn't know him, had never even heard his name before yesterday. When her father sat her down with that look, the one that meant the family accounting books had finally defeated him. "The medical bills from your brother's accident," her father had explained, unable to meet her eyes. "And my failed investments. We're drowning, Thalia. The Varon family has offered a solution." Solution? What a cold word for selling your daughter. Now, 3 days later, she stood in the Stark attorney's office, wearing a dress her mother had pressed with shaking hands. The room smelled of leather and old paper, filled with mahogany furniture that seemed to judge her from every corner. Then he walked in. Cale Varon moved with quiet confidence, tall and composed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her family's monthly rent. Dark hair fell across his forehead, and his eyes, a striking gray-green, swept over her with an expression she couldn't read. Not cruel, but not warm either. Assessing. "Miss Morse," he said, his voice low and measured. He didn't offer his hand. "Mr. Varon," she managed, proud that her voice didn't crack. The ceremony was brutally efficient. Papers shuffled, pens scratched, signatures sealed her fate in blue ink. Her father signed with a shaking hand. Cale's signature was steady, practiced, as if he signed away pieces of his life regularly. When the attorney pronounced them legally bound, Thalia felt the walls closing in. This stranger now had rights to her, authority over her future. The golden band on her finger felt like a shackle. "We should go," Cale said quietly. Not unkind, but distant. She followed him to a sleek black car, watching the city blur past the window as they drove to their home. A penthouse, of course. Everything gleaming and cold and perfect. In the elevator, she pressed herself against the far wall, her heart hammering. Cale noticed. His jaw tightened, something flickering across his face. Was it hurt? But he said nothing, simply stepped aside when the doors opened, letting her exit first. "Your room is prepared," he said, gesturing down the hallway. "You won't be disturbed. Your room, not ours." Thalia didn't know whether to feel relieved or more terrified. The room Cale had given her was larger than her family's entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering city, and the bed could easily fit 4 people. Thalia sat on its edge, still wearing her dress, watching the door like it might burst open at any moment. Hours passed. The sky darkened from gray to black. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since morning, but fear kept her frozen. A soft knock made her jump. "Thalia?" Cale's voice came through the door, gentle. "May I come in?" She stood, smoothing her dress with damp palms. "Yes." He entered carrying a tray, tea, sandwiches, fruit. Still wearing his suit, but he'd loosened his tie, and exhaustion shadowed his eyes. "You haven't eaten," he said, setting the tray on the small table by the window. "Neither have I. Would you join me?" It wasn't a command. It was a request. Cautiously, she approached. They sat across from each other, the food between them like a demilitarized zone. "I know you're frightened," Cale said after a moment, his eyes meeting hers directly. "I can see it. The way you pressed yourself against the elevator wall, how you watched the door." Shame heated her cheeks, but he continued. "I want you to understand something. This arrangement, I didn't choose it to gain a possession. I chose it because—" He paused, vulnerability cracking through his composed exterior. "Because I'm alone. Have been for years. My parents died when I was 23. No siblings. The company, the money, the endless business dinners with people who want something from me. It's hollow." Thalia found herself listening. Truly listening. I thought perhaps a companion, someone who understood obligation. Might? He trailed off, looking almost embarrassed. "I'm not explaining this well." "You're lonely," she said softly. His eyes snapped to hers, surprised by her directness. "Yes, so you bought a wife." He flinched. "I saved a family from ruin and hoped for something real to grow from necessity. Perhaps that makes me a fool." The honesty disarmed her. She'd expected demands, entitlement, coldness. Not this quiet confession. "I won't touch you," Cale continued, his voice firmer now. "Not unless you want me to. You have your own room, your own space. I ask only that we try to be kind to each other, to build something, even if it's just friendship." Thalia picked up her tea, hand steadier now. "Why should I trust you?" "You shouldn't, not yet." He offered a small, sad smile. "Trust is earned. I intend to earn it." They ate in more comfortable silence. Cale told her about the penthouse, where everything was, gave her security codes and passwords. Treated her like a person, not property. When she finally retired to her room, she realized something had shifted. The door between their rooms remained unlocked on her side, her choice to open or keep closed. That night, she slept better than expected. Morning light streamed through the windows, and Thalia woke to the smell of coffee. She found Cale in the kitchen, still slightly rumpled from sleep, making breakfast. "I'm a decent cook," he said, glancing up. "I hope you like omelets." The domestic scene felt surreal. This powerful man, who commanded boardrooms and had rescued her family from financial destruction, was whisking eggs in worn pajama pants and a faded university shirt. "I didn't expect this," she admitted. "What did you expect? A staff of servants?" He slid a perfect omelet onto her plate. "I have a housekeeper who comes twice a week, but I prefer privacy. Especially now." They fell into a rhythm over the following days. Cale left for work early, but always made sure she had breakfast. He'd return in the evenings and they'd share dinner, conversations growing longer. More personal. He learned she loved classical literature and filled her room with books. She discovered he played piano beautifully, but only when he thought no one was listening. One evening, his family came to visit his aunt and uncle. Sharp-eyed and judgmental. "So this is the girl," his Aunt Margaret said, looking Thalia up and down like merchandise. "I suppose she's pretty enough, though her background is concerning." "You could have done better, Cale." Thalia felt herself shrinking. But Cale's hand found hers under the table, warm and steady. "I did exactly what I wanted," he said, his voice cold in a way she'd never heard. "And Thalia's background is none of your concern. She's brilliant, kind, and more genuine than anyone I've met in your social circles." His aunt's lips pursed, but she said nothing more. After they left, Thalia found Cale on the balcony, tension radiating from his shoulders. "Thank you," she said quietly, stepping beside him. "For defending me. I meant every word." He turned to her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "You've made this place feel like a home, Thalia. These past weeks, I look forward to coming back each day, to seeing you curled up reading or hearing your laugh when you watch those absurd comedy shows." Her heart hammered. "Cale. I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I just wanted you to know. You're not an obligation anymore. She stepped closer, closing the distance between them. His eyes widened slightly, hope and caution warring in their depths. "I'm what?" she whispered. You're the best part of my day. He breathed. Thalia single quotes S hand lifted to his chest, feeling his heart race beneath her palm. The fear that had defined their beginning had transformed into something else entirely: anticipation. Warmth, the thrilling edge of possibility. Mine too, she admitted. His hand covered hers. And they stood there as the city lights sparkled below. No longer strangers bound by contract, but two people choosing to move closer together. The rain came suddenly that evening, sheets of water cascading down the windows as thunder rolled across the city. Thalia had been reading when the storm began, but now she found herself drawn to the piano room where Cale sat, his fingers moving over the keys with haunting intensity. She'd never heard him play like this, raw, almost desperate. The melody spoke of pain and longing, each note a confession. When the final chord faded, she stepped into the room. That was beautiful. And heartbreaking. Cale didn't turn around. I wrote it after my parents died. Haven't played it since. Why tonight? His shoulders rose and fell. Because I'm terrified. Thalia moved closer, her hand tentatively touching his shoulder. Of what? Of this. Of you. Finally, he looked at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes stole her breath. I told myself this arrangement was practical, that I could keep my distance, protect myself. But Thalia, every day I fall further, and I don't know if you'll ever— Cale, she interrupted gently. Why did you really agree to this marriage? He stood, turning to face her fully. 7 years ago, I was engaged, Sophia. I thought we were in love, but she was only interested in my inheritance. When she left me for someone wealthier, I swore I'd never be vulnerable like that again. His hand reached out, hovering near her face but not quite touching. Then you arrived, terrified and brave, and every wall I built started crumbling. I kept thinking, if I just stayed kind but distant, I could have companionship without risk. But I can't pretend anymore. Pretend what? That I don't want to kiss you every time you smile. That my heart doesn't stop when you walk into a room. That I haven't fallen completely, terrifyingly in love with my own wife. Thalia's breath caught. The confession hung between them, heavy with possibility and fear. I was so angry when my father told me, she whispered, stepping closer until mere inches separated them. I felt sold, traded away like property. I was prepared to hate you. Pain flickered across his face, but she continued. But you were gentle when you could have demanded, patient when you could have taken. You gave me choice when the world had stripped it away. Her hand lifted to his cheek, feeling the slight stubble, the warmth of his skin. You made me feel seen, valued, cherished. And somewhere between your terrible morning cooking attempts and the way you remember how I take my tea, I fell too. Thalia, he breathed her name like a prayer. Kiss me, she whispered. Please. His control shattered. Cale's hands cradled her face as his lips met hers, tender at first, then deeper as weeks of restraint dissolved. She melted into him, her fingers tangling in his hair, tasting rain and want and promise. He lifted her easily, carrying her toward his room, then paused, pulling back to search her eyes. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. The storm raged outside as they discovered each other, every touch a revelation, every whispered word a vow more binding than any contract. This was choice, pure and real, two people who'd started as strangers choosing to become everything to each other. Afterward. She lay against his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. No more separate rooms, he murmured into her hair. No more separate anything, she agreed, tilting her face up to kiss him again. 3 months later. Thalia stood in the penthouse kitchen, humming as she prepared dinner. The space that had once felt cold and foreign now held memories in every corner. Cale teaching her to cook his mother's recipes. Late-night conversations over wine, stolen kisses against the counter. She heard the door open. His familiar footsteps approaching. "Something smells incredible," Cale said, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind, nuzzling her neck. "Your mother's pasta recipe. I think I finally mastered it." He spun her around, capturing her lips in a kiss that still made her dizzy. "Have I mentioned today that I love you?" "Only twice." "You're slacking," she teased. Their peaceful moment shattered when the doorbell rang. Cale's expression darkened. He knew who it was. His Aunt Margaret and Uncle Richard stood in the doorway. Margaret's face pinched with displeasure. "We need to discuss the foundation gala," Margaret announced, sweeping inside without invitation. "Cale, you cannot seriously be bringing her. The Darlington family will be there, and Sophia is recently divorced. This would be the perfect opportunity." "Stop." Cale's voice cut like ice. "I'm bringing my wife, who will be by my side at every event for the rest of our lives. And if Sophia or anyone else has a problem with that, they can leave." "You're being foolish," Richard interjected. "This girl has nothing to offer. No connections, no breeding. She offers me everything that matters," Cale interrupted, his hand finding Thalia's. "Love. Partnership. A home instead of a mausoleum. And I'm done letting you treat her as anything less than she is." Thalia squeezed his hand, then stepped forward. "I understand I'm not what you envisioned for Cale. But I love him, and he loves me. We're building a life together, one based on choice and respect. You're welcome to be part of it, but only if you can treat us both with dignity." Margaret's mouth opened, closed. For the first time, she had no cutting reply. "I think it's time you left," Cale said quietly, after they'd gone. Thalia turned to find Cale watching her with such profound love it made her chest ache. "You were magnificent," he said. "We were magnificent, together." He pulled her close, and she felt the rightness of it, this man who'd started as a stranger. An obligation, a fear, had become her home. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked softly. "How we began." Thalia thought about that scared girl in the attorney's office, the weeks of uncertainty, the slow building of trust. "No, because every difficult step brought us here. To this, to us. I spent so long thinking love had to be perfect from the start," Cale murmured against her hair. "But the best love grows from choice, doesn't it? Choosing each other every day. Especially when we didn't have to." They swayed together in the kitchen. No music needed, the pasta sauce simmering forgotten on the stove. "Thank you," Cale whispered. "For what?" "For being brave enough to trust me. For turning a contract into a love story." Thalia pulled back to look at him, this man who'd shown her that gentleness was strength, that patience could transform fear into love. "Thank you for waiting for me, for making me feel safe enough to fall." Their lips met, soft and sure, a kiss that tasted of promise and forever. Outside, the city glittered with 1,000 stories. But inside their home, truly their home now, two people who'd been forced together by circumstance had found something rare and precious. A love built on choice, nurtured by kindness and sealed not by obligation but by the simple, powerful decision to keep choosing each other. Every single day. The arranged marriage had ended. The moment they'd fallen in love, what remained was so much better, a true beginning. And a lifetime of mornings waking up beside the person who transformed fear into forever. The end.